anthropologists. We were at University of Kentucky. Anthropology, they have they have folklore, folk life. And so what I was learning in academia is we have to separate. It's like fact from fiction, but really everything is energy and everything comes from somewhere, and every story that we could say has probably already been said over and over and over again. So we can get as deep, what I say is as far down the rabbit hole or down the rabbit hole or up the food chain. How's that? So I've said that before. But Ken Johnston has a piece in between on this chronological timeline, and he understands the Mandela effect, and so does Janet. So I want to get us on this UFO Secret Space. There's this thing going on between Corey Good and copywriting SSP, or Secret Space. And I haven't seen the letter, but I heard about it on the richarddolanmembers.com YouTube. And also, they're wanting to, do the same thing we're doing. There's nothing different than we're all looking at the old guys, which Ken and I and Janet are. We were working for the government long. Well, you could be a young soul, but I think you're a very old soul. But with us, the three of us, we've been carrying part of the message. Now, what we need to do is put ours together and then see how other people's fit with ours, if you guys out there don't mind, with this UFO Secret Space Command, because we're actually have the UFO Secret Space Group, and I would like to say that none of us are going to say, well, we're all ambassadors for the universe, because each one of us is, but a lot of people don't like that grandstanding. So I thought, Ken, you're the perfect 3D person to say, look, this stuff was real. I know who I am. I worked at NASA, and here's the years. And then I can help in those same years. And then Janet partially has her star, Johnson Atoll, out in Hawaii. But we're going to put us together for a reason. There is a reason for this. And then we can bring in other people's stories, because a lot of people out there are getting really, really interested, but also really, really confused. So we're going to make it as real for you as possible, and there was a lot of investigators before us. And Ken, you mentioned Majestic 12. Now, I had that manual on my in my possession, let me put it that way. And what's so funny is it had the red ink and the black ink, and I've seen Linda Moulton Howell with that. Did you see the Majestic 12 paper or manual?
No, I didn't see the manual. There were the group of us there at Boeing did. Some of them were on secret projects, and they had just enough to make it a fun thing to call ourselves the Majestic 12.
Okay, gotcha.
I've learned a lot since then.
Okay. Well, see, this is the thing that happens, and that's okay. And Janet, you want to explain a little bit about the Mandela effect? Because Janet has been with me for so many years, folks. If you don't know who she is the producer of the Stargate to the Cosmos event that got us started here in 2012. If you guys remember, it was a very important year, and we thought it was going to be a different wave of level of existence and mentality, one might say, in 12/21/12. But Janet, the Mandela effect came about from the Dragon Con, I believe, out in Atlanta, but in 2011, and moved forward about them talking about it. And a guy came up named Shadow and mentioned it to the woman. And anyway, it took off in the Mandela effect, because a lot of people thought the same thing about Nelson Mandela, that he had died in prison and he was still alive. So this is what Janet and me and Ken are about. So, Janet, explain. Can you sort of say, how each person has their own timeline and the Mandela effect? Can you, and Ken can chime in on that too.
Well, apparently there's many timelines that converge and move across one another. So you can experience something and actually shift timelines, and then you experience the same thing differently. So some of the examples are that Nelson Mandela, a lot of people remember he died in, I don't know what year it was, 68, in a big funeral. and then other people remember he died in whatever the real year was. So they called it the Mandela, not Mandala. Mandala is a beautiful thing that you draw in the sand. A bunch of
Nelson Mandela versus Mandela.
Nelson Mandela, and I've been corrected on that one. From my perspective, when I was 4, I was taken on board the mothership and then when I was on, and I was my eternal self, and I was shown 24 multiverses, variables on the theme, directions that one could go, and it's like driving down a superhighway, and you have all these lanes, and if you want to shift lanes, you move over and you take the exit. You go into another timeline. So we're dealing with a lot of different timelines, a lot of different variables on the same thing. So there's a timeline where, Hitler didn't go to South America and stayed ruling, and, and they made a TV series about that called The High, it's on Amazon. What's it called? The High something. Anyway, they have this alternative Nazi universe, and they made it a weekly series, and it's been on for a couple of years. Anyway, that's basically what it is. There's all these variables on the theme, and actually Robert Heinlein, his final book was on that. What was it called? The Mark of the Beast. So in the final book, Heinlein was traveling through time and space in a spaceship, and he would encounter the people from The Wizard of Oz, and all the books that were written. We thought they were all fiction, but he was actually encountering all these characters. So, there's a lot of people that have touched on this concept, even without having the awareness of Nelson Mandela's phenomenon. So what happens is sometimes we get together and we share a story, and people have different variations of the same story, and we go, well, wait a minute, this is how it happened, that's how it happened. And some people say, well, maybe that's just memory, your guys are remembering things different. Well, so that's part of it, actually. There's as many universes as there are people. We all remember things slightly different. We have a different perspective. We were standing in the room differently. We were doing things differently. So you have that effect, and you have the Mandela effect as well. So that's what we were doing. I'm hearing all this background noise.
Is that better?
Are you there?
I'm making some of the noise. Yeah. I apologize for that. I had to go in the other room with my finger over the speaker here and ask my wife to turn the TV down.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was hearing that, and then I heard somebody cough, and then it sounded like somebody closed their microwave. My husband always does that. He opens his microwave and heats his coffee up, and he doesn't realize that people can hear him.
Then maybe it wasn't dreaming.
Yeah. So is that what you're asking about?
Yeah.
That's a variable on the timelines, and so and I'm learning about that still because I experience it and then get blown away by it, and so I'm learning to let go. Instead of getting wrapped up, a lot of people get wrapped up in the details, and they get all screwed up because they start arguing the semantics, so to speak. They start arguing the details of a timeline. But what's really going on is that, we're just in this here and now, and we're in this consensus reality, those who gather together in a room, and that kind of exists for as long as we manufacture it together, and when we walk away, something else takes its place. So we're the ones that are all creating reality. So with that in mind, you can be careful what you think. Thoughts are deeds. We are manifesting them. We are in a different space and time where we're manifesting a lot faster than ever before. That's the main reason that the extraterrestrials love humans, is that we can bring the non-material down into physicality. We can bring heaven to earth. We can manifest things. We're creative. A lot of the species are in a very narrow perspective, and they can't, imagine much or create much anymore. But we're very creative. We're still creative, and let's hope that never changes, because that's one of our biggest assets to how we contribute to the universe. Does that make sense?
It does to me.
Okay. I don't know where TJ is. TJ, are you there?
Have we lost TJ? If we did, she'll come back on. I can pick up with that if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Janet.
Go ahead, yes.
Since more of this information is starting to be made public, some of us can start taking a look back at our lives and how we wound up where we are and the experiences we've had. And in my particular case, my dad was killed 2 months after I was born in 1942 as a pilot during World War II. And then my mother married a Marine captain, and he was killed once he got back to the States due to circumstances. So I'm thinking that's kind of set the timeline and taking a look at the offspring. And my brother, Dr. A.R. Johnston, who wound up working in the design and development of the big vacuum chambers and things with NASA. Our brother in between us, he wound up being killed on a school hayride, so that just left the older and the younger, myself. And I've been going back looking over my life and history and finding that there are gaps of time that I wonder really what took place in them, because, for instance, like my mother and them were looking for me for like 6 hours or so, and they found me. This was when I was like 7 years old, inside the dirty clothes hamper, underneath all the clothes that are inside the dirty clothes hamper. Now, did I stay in there for like 6 or 7 hours? And further on down the line, there are other cases where the timelines...
Wait. What happened? Did you ever find out? Were you taken and returned underneath the dirty clothes? Did you?
I'm getting to that.
Happened?
Give me time.
Okay,
that's what I'm going to tell you.
I thought you were just going to leave us with that one hanging. I wasn't going to let that one go. Okay, so
oh, no,
continue your story.
See, all of this stuff is now coming out, and thanks to Dr. Sasha Lesson getting into the hypnotic regression and getting into some of the area my memories and things had been wiped somewhat clean, but with the right technique and abilities of people like Sasha, we can get into that. And that's what we're starting to discover, is that some of these things put me in the right place, and I like to use it this way, right place at the right time to do the right thing. And that was, who was that, the astronaut, the very first one we put into space, Alan B. Shepard. I think he was the one who said that. Anyway, so from that, I've been going back and kind of looking over the yearbooks and records and things I've had and files. I'm a pack rat, and thank God I am a pack rat, because otherwise we wouldn't have had the archive that I saved from NASA, as well as able to go back and look at these things that took place in my life and look for the places where all of a sudden there's this gap in time. And that's been within the last year and a half, 2 years, folks, that I'm now coming to grips with the facts that I have been tapped and pulled in by extraterrestrials and been set in motion to be at a certain place for certain events. And that's kind of what I wrote my second book, which is the regression of NASA whistleblower. My wife was terrified that I was going to come forward with the information that came out because of credibility. Now, with everything else that's happened, then I've had documents, records, and things, for instance, like a certificate over 3,000 hours as a spacecraft pilot in the vacuum chambers and all that. That's credibility. But when you start talking about things that the average person, they're going to poo-poo in, they can't accept it unless they themselves have been experienced or have come in contact with people who they can trust. So now I'm at the point of coming forward with the information that Dr. Lesson has been digging out, and that has been triggered thoughts of missing time, and still trying to maintain the credibility. As I said, there's 2 books out already, and the third one is dealing with more of the regression and actually the events and things that I took place on before we got to the moon and before we've gotten on Mars. And those things, that's the hardest thing, I think, for you, Janet, and TJ, and that is to be able to realize that all of this stuff has to be real, or we wouldn't have the kind of memories and connections. And that's the other thing. I'm running into people like Corey Good and Andrew Bashago and things. That's according to the records, I ran into them on Mars. Now, wow, that is something hard for me to kind of come to grips with and be willing to accept the fact that I've been a part of the secret space program and didn't even know it. So that kind of brings you up to where I'm at.
Well, I'm getting a lot of that same thing, is that what really has been going on. So it seems like we're triggering each other. and helping us to wake up and
Yes.
activate